but you couldn't have predicted it. That's the key. A lot of people go, oh yeah, help other people, you get stuff. They're a big deal. No, the idea is the opportunities are over the horizon. They're invisible. You can't see them.
What are you getting after? What seeds are you planting? What are you overcoming? Think big. Think even bigger. Take some risks. God's got your back. Go for it. Don't hold back. Don't ever have regrets in your life. Go fail. Go grow from those things. Live your life.
Your identity is not defined by your successes or your failures.
If you're not happy where you're at, you won't be happy where you're going. Choose to do the things that will make you the person you want to be, that will make you a better person next week and next year.
You're going to have to leave some things you're actually good at behind so that you can find what you're wired for, what you're born for.
Being a world-class entrepreneur is being in every area of life excellent.
It is the little things that are so easy not to do.
The best thing that you can do is assume the best in people.
I want people around the world to believe they can do something great with their life.
If I build the biggest business, but I destroy my physical body and I lose my health, I don't think that's success. While you're on the journey climbing to success, never forget the things that matter most.
If you like this episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button. August 6th, 2019. I'm your host, Jonathan Frederick, and you are listening to the Heart Healthy Hustle Show. Today's guest, Jordan Harbinger. You will love this interview if you are a journalist, a podcaster, or if you just enjoy a good conversation. Whether you're listening to this right now in your car, whether you're at the gym, I appreciate you listening. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you're into podcasting at all, Jordan is known throughout the space, often referred to as the Larry King of podcasting. Jordan is a Wall Street lawyer turned interview talk show host and a communications and social dynamics expert. Jordan has hosted a top 50 iTunes podcast for over 12 years and receives over 5 million downloads per month, making The Jordan Harbinger Show one of the most popular podcasts in the world. The show was awarded Apple's Best of 2018 and is one of the most downloaded shows. Jordan deconstructs the playbooks of the most successful people on earth and shares their strategies, perspectives, and practical insights. Jordan spent several years abroad in Europe and the developing world, including South America, Eastern Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, and speaks 5 languages. He has also worked for various government and nonprofit organizations overseas, traveled through war zones, and been kidnapped twice. I've personally heard Jordan speak on numerous different podcasts, different courses. Specifically, I've taken Jordan's podcasting course on creativelive.com. If you don't know what Creative Live is, Creative Live, led by CEO Chase Jarvis, who I am hoping to have on as a guest in the near months, is an online education platform that broadcasts live classes to an international audience, millions of students. So if you're looking to take a class on podcasting, journalism, photo and video, money and life, art and design, craft, photography, video, you name it, Creative Live has a course for it. Check that out. Excited to talk to Jordan today. We'll get into that interview in just a moment. Before we do that, I want to thank you guys for listening. I want to thank you and let you know this month, I'm looking at my calendar right here, the month of August is packed to the brim with interviews. Next Thursday, I'll be speaking with Patrice Washington, the Wise Wealth Show. We're speaking with a Harlem Globetrotter the day after that. A week after that, we're speaking with the author of Essentialism, Greg McKeown. So the guest list keeps growing. It's blowing my mind, but it's amazing the momentum the show is picking up, and I can't thank you enough for listening, sharing the show. Really helps out growing the show and spreading it to more people who need this. Having Jordan on the show is a big deal to me. If you asked me 1 year ago today, do you think you'll interview Jordan Harbinger? Yeah, Jordan's just a person. I get it, right? If you would have asked me that the day I started this podcast, if within 1 year and a couple months I'd have him on the show, and I would have probably said no, probably not. It is so incredible to see what's possible when you just put your mind to something consistently and when you have people backing you up and backing up what you're working on. I want to share that with you so that if there is something you're considering going in on to work on a project, a side business, whatever it is, or something full all in, just go for it. Do it. You will be blown away by what you're capable of and what's possible, even in just a short year's time. Put your heart and soul into it and watch what will happen. You will be blown away. I'm so pumped to share this interview with you. Let's get into the show. How do you introduce yourself?
I just tell people I'm a talk show host, and if they want to talk about it, they'll ask more. And I say, "Oh, well, do you listen to podcasts?" I lead them down a little bit of a sales funnel, but I don't really do I interview brilliant people and make their wisdom available to everyone. I mean, that sounds good and all that. It's a good Twitter bio, but I don't really lead with that because a lot of people will go "Huh? Okay." I usually just say talk show host unless I'm standing in front of a room. It just depends. It depends on context. A lot of times I don't want to sit there and talk about what I do for 10 minutes, or it's rude if you're in polite company to. It's almost rude's not quite the right word. Sometimes you don't want to be more interesting than everyone else. In a way, I know that sounds a little arrogant, but you don't always. If you're in a room full of salespeople and stuff like that, and they're just being polite, you don't have to go down that road. But if people are trying to actually get to know you, then yeah, that's another situation. Entirely.
100% understand. So we're talking a little bit about the Jordan Harbinger show, the precursor to that, your career. I've been following you since 2015. I've taken a couple of your social dynamics courses. I'm interested to know, with the birth of your new son, Jaden, what is that doing to you right now? I mean, first of all, when did Jen have the baby? Was it very, very recent, 2 days ago?
Yeah, it was last week.
Okay, so what has it done so far for your psyche, for who Jordan Harbinger is and what your future outlook is, if you had to contextualize that?
I mean, it reaffirmed a lot of the things I already kind of knew, which is, you should optimize for lifestyle. I know a ton of people that I live in Silicon Valley. A lot of people around me are making so much money, and a lot of them, they cash out or they IPO, and it's wow, a lot of money. But I don't necessarily see all of them as extremely happy or interesting. The people that I know that are happy and interested in what they're doing, they really focus on their family, their lifestyle. And I've built, a pretty good business doing something I really enjoy. And that is kind of priceless in a way, and it's been great for me to be able to make a really healthy living and have a lot of free time, a whole lot. I mean, even now, probably 60% of my job is reading. So you can't really beat that.
So you're optimizing for lifestyle. We were talking a little bit before the show about your day in the life, how it's kind of mundane, kind of just the typical tasks of getting up, maybe not even showering, just getting things done, nothing too mission critical. I really like that focus, and that didn't really make sense to me until I read The Slight Edge. Shout out to John Lee Dumas. Are you friends with John Lee Dumas, by the way? Or do you just Okay. Are you guys hit it up once a month, or when you just see each other kind of thing?
I would say when we see each other, or sometimes one of us will text each other out of the blue if it's been a couple months. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Jordan, I'm really curious. You were recently featured in the New York Times in your article about podcasting, not necessarily getting old, but I read the article from the top to the bottom, and your synopsis of being featured in New York Times. First of all, your cat's awesome, Momo the cat.
Yep.
That thing got a lot of attention.
Yeah.
I'm curious, though, the next wave, right? Obviously, podcasting, it's not going anywhere. Obviously, there's a lot of pod fade, which means people who start and stop podcast after episode 3, even 30, whatever that number is. But I'm interested to know, from your perspective, for me, right? Nobody knows who I am. I have a podcast. It's a great show. I put my heart and soul into it. I put my funds into it. I really want to help people. I really, really want to help people, and it has been helped. The download numbers are increasing. My question for you is, what would you recommend for someone in my setting, in my situation, who I'm here to stay? I'm episode 117. I'm just improving, implementing all of the different things that are going to matter for podcasting moving forward. At least I think so. And I'm willing to adapt. I don't quit. I haven't missed 1 week since I started. I'm not bragging. I'm saying this to let you know. But what's your take? What's the next wave look like? Who should I be connecting with? You know what I'm saying? Instead of just overreaching and saying, let me try to interview Jordan and try to break into his circle and this and that. It's who's this guy, Jonathan? You're late to the show. Podcasting was up and coming in 2010 or 2012. Now you're coming in so late. I don't want to be that kind of person. So what would you recommend?
That was a really loaded question, but I have a question first. Do you edit these? Because I really have to go grab some water because my throat's going to drive me crazy.
Take your time, man.
Okay, hold on 1 second. All right.
I'm asking, what do you recommend a podcaster who's been 1 year into it is committed to consistency, improvement, and helping other people. Here's my real question. How do I grow the Heart Healthy Hustle show? How do I, without overreaching to try to break into circles that I haven't earned my way into, I don't necessarily even desire to pretend I belong there or posture. What do you recommend I do? I've been reaching out to people who are, on the come up, the people who are to my left and right. Is that the move for me, someone like me?
I would say, yeah. I mean, look, reaching out to people wide who are on the come up, people who are your peers, your colleagues, that's always good. I mean, knowing people for a long time, even if they go into different directions, is great. You can always try to reach upwards, but, it really doesn't. I found it doesn't necessarily matter a whole lot. Right? Like, oh, I had Shaquille O'Neal on my show. Guess what that did for my show? Nothing really. It was an interesting interview, but it didn't double my audience or anything like that, Mm-hmm. I've got a lot of friends that are really well known in broadcasting space. Dr. Drew, Adam Carolla, these are great people. They're good people to know. But I got there because I worked my way up brick by brick, not because I sent a magical cold email and they were like, you know what? We're taking a chance on this kid today. I mean, that wasn't what happened, right? So you should really focus on the work. Focus on getting better at the craft of interviewing, if that's what you like to do. Focus on the broadcast. Focus on the product that you deliver to the listener. I mean, that's what really matters at the end of the day. That's the stuff that actually matters.
For sure. The actual work, the brick by brick. I love that.
Yeah, that's what matters.
One foot in front of the other. Okay, addressing your shower thoughts. One that stood out to me recently that you shared, the way someone reacts to rejection oftentimes justifies the rejection. Another one you shared was Amish people are like acoustic humans. What's the story? How did shower thoughts become a thing?
Yeah, so a lot of people send me funny little thoughts or ideas, and they get transmuted into shower thoughts if they're not already. And these are basically ideas that are, I like to question things that we take as universal truths, or just make dumb dad jokes, especially now that I'm a dad. But a lot of things question basic sort of universal truths or things that we've been doing all along. And it's like, well, wait, how effective is this? And some of it, I guess it sort of comes across as comedy, right? Like, what's one recently where someone told me, yeah, when you cook something at home, people say, oh, we want restaurant quality meals. Mm-hmm. But then when you go to a restaurant, they always advertise by saying that they have home style cooking. And it's like, well, wait a minute. What the heck? If I'm at home, I want to go to a restaurant. If I'm at a restaurant, it's like I want to eat at home. I don't really understand that. And things like someone the other day said, well, no offense, but and I was like, the term no offense really must have like a 0% success rate. Right? Like
people are automatically blood pressure increases at least 5 beats per minute.
Yeah, because it's like clearly you're about to say something that's going to hurt my feelings or be offensive in some way. Yeah. Unless you didn't need to say no offense in the first place. But usually the reason that is being the reason that got said is because it's a problem. You're about to say something that's not very nice. That's it. Yeah. So, I mean, those types of universal truths, I'll think about them often while I'm in the shower or on a walk, and I'll be like, oh, that's an interesting question. And sometimes I Google it if there's an answer, but other times it's just it's a missing or a missive or a musing, and that's what I write down. And those turned out to be really popular Facebook or Twitter statuses or tweets because so many people have them and so many people like to be made to think, if that makes sense. And so that type of stuff for me is pretty interesting. I don't really know if there's much more beyond it. It's not that much deeper than that, frankly.
I think that's why it's so catchy.
Yeah, and they're short, so they're tweet length, right? I think a lot of people. That's the key. A lot of people, they don't really want to spend a lot of time with content, and I understand that.
Speaking of content, you're very omni-channel, omni-platform with your publishing. Mm-hmm. However, you don't go too heavy on Instagram. You don't go real heavy on any one platform. You're definitely very present on LinkedIn. Explain to us your strategy there with content.
I'm not an internet marketer, and so for me, a lot of content strategy is actually me just putting out things that I think are useful. And that has actually proven quite good. Now, do I have super high engagement? No, because the algorithm actually optimizes for outrage or viral sort of stuff that's hilarious or something like that, or offensive usually. For me, I have good engagement, with a very solid, consistent audience that's educated. And that's more important. Now, at first I was so bummed because friends of mine would have these like viral videos or viral blog posts, and I would tell you who they are, but it doesn't matter because nobody knows who they are anymore. They made one viral video, or they made 5, or they made 10, and now they don't do anything because the formula changed, or what they were doing doesn't work, or they can't do the same thing anymore. The algorithm changed. The algorithm is optimizing. This is no secret, but the algorithm is optimizing to give people what they want, right? And so things like podcasting are great for me because what people want is well-considered, intelligent content that's long format. So a lot of people go, oh, man, don't you wish you'd started with YouTube? Because I did for a long time, because I looked at YouTube audience and I was like, man, if I started with YouTube the year YouTube came out, I'd have tens of millions of subscribers. My life would be different. I'd be a celebrity. Everybody know who I was, whatever. That's not really the case because the people who've done really well on YouTube over a long period of time, they're not sitting around and having an intelligent conversation for a half hour or an hour. They're doing voices, or they're pranking people, or they're a really hot girl that has dogs that talks about her life and, got a vlogging community around her. Like that type of thing, that is not what I wanted to do. And I see content creators fall into this trap a lot where they'll go, oh, I'm doing my podcast, but I'm also on YouTube. And then they're going, the podcast isn't doing as well as YouTube is. And then they start optimizing for YouTube. Well, what works well in your podcast? Long format, intelligent conversation. Great. That's really fulfilling. It's really interesting. You can do really good work with that. What works well on YouTube? A thumbnail that says, I blew my mind. My head exploded with this quote that you heard or something. The next 60 seconds will F you up, bro. Explosion, thumbnail, really loud, annoying picture, or, stupid expression on your face. And then the video's 2 minutes long or 2.5 minutes long, but the drop-off rate is 90 seconds in. So you start making 90-second videos. And then pretty soon we're back to frickin' Vine. You remember?
I can tell you sound really unpleased with this reality of life.
well, what it is it turns people who wanted to make really good, smart content it turns everybody into a cable TV reality show version of their content. Like, do you remember how old are you again? 28?
28 in 30 days.
So you totally won't remember this, but Jerry Springer, you know who that guy is.
Unfortunately.
You right, unfortunately. Well, guess what? In the early 90s, when his show was new, it might have even been in the 80s, all it was him talking with really smart people and being really introspective and interesting.
Oh, really? It was legit?
Yeah, it was legit. It was so crazy. Good. And then another show came out that was Jenny Jones, and she was also really legit and smart and interesting. And then what happened was Geraldo Rivera, and I'm not just going to blame him, but basically I'm pretty sure this is kind of his thing. He, who also, by the way, was named Jerry Rivers and was a real journalist, he had a talk show, and he invited on like Aryan Brotherhood or, white supremacists or whatever. And so they got in a fight, and someone threw a chair, and it broke his nose live on air. Like, it was nuts. And it was totally out of control and was totally unplanned, and it got insanely high ratings. And then he went back to his normal talk show, and the ratings hit the toilet. And so he kept staging all this stuff, and then every other daytime TV talk show went, we now have to out-ridiculous everyone else. So now you can't really find – Oprah kind of did it because she was Oprah, but, like, there wasn't really that much room for serious talk shows. There's a guy before that named Phil Donahue. He never had that crap going on. He was a serious talk show host, right? Yeah. But now you don't have that because people, the dumb masses, the unwashed masses, as we'll refer to them. And I don't mean like everyone else but me. I mean like there's a huge cadre of people in North America and everywhere around the world. They don't really want interesting conversation. They don't really want to learn anything. They want to numb themselves. And the way they do that is they watch freaking Kardashians, man.
It's crazy. Let me pause us. I can tell you're passionate about this subject. Social media, I feel that viral. When you said the word viral, what hit me was vile goes viral, sadly. It's really unfortunate, like you said, because educational, good content that's edifying is unfortunately not usually seen by the masses almost ever, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty sad. Another thing is social media, or just Here's what I ask you based on your social dynamic expertise and the life that you've lived so far and the people you've rubbed shoulders with and people you're in connections with now. Networking and really just building fruitful relationships to benefit one another in real life or social media. If you had to pick one, what would you pick and why?
If I had to pick another form of media?
No, if you had to pick how to connect, how to build your list of connections, how to build your network.
Listening allows you to multitask. Let's say you're driving to work, you're running errands, cleaning up on a Saturday, whatever you're doing. And that's why I've reached out to audible.com. I became an Audible affiliate so you can get a free audiobook. I use Audible for many of my audiobooks, tremendous selection of books readily available. So if you don't want to spend a monthly subscription to Audible, put in your name and email, at which point you can listen to that audiobook, keep it forever, and cancel your subscription before 30 days so that you don't get charged for the monthly subscription. This way you get a free book. Go to triplehaudiobook.com. That's HHHaudiobook.com.
Oh, well, I do a whole course on network building called 6 Minute Networking.
Right.
And I'll plug that in a second, of course. But the way that I do that is I look for opportunities to help people. And I know that sounds very trite, but actually what I mean by that is I'll give you a real example. Let me think of an actual real example that actually happened recently. Because I have my old original example. You know what? Screw it. I'll go with my old original example because we're long enough out of that timeline that I can say definitively how it ended up. So a long time ago, before Uber existed, I was living in LA. I had just moved there. I didn't have a dentist, but I had a toothache, and I was like, oh crap, my tooth really hurts. So I called a bunch of dentists, and they were all like, look, I don't take you because you don't have the right insurance. Oh, you're really far away. Oh, I can't see you for a week. We don't take new patients, all that kind of stuff. A lot of them wanted me to go to the ER, and I thought, oh man, this is going to, I don't want to go to the ER. They're just going to rip my tooth out with a string or something like that. I need to have this handled by somebody who knows what they're doing. So I posted on Facebook, and somebody I've never met, because of course I didn't have my privacy settings in order, apparently. Somebody I've never met was like, hey man, yeah, my aunt's a dentist, and I think she's right near you in Hollywood. Do you want me to call her? And I was like, oh my gosh, please do. Look, I don't have any insurance. I'm 29 or whatever I was at the time. I really don't have a ton of money, but I obviously have to get this fixed. And I really, I can muster some cash, throw it on a card, but I don't have any other way to do this. I'm 39 now. Luckily, I'm in a better situation. And he's like, okay, no problem. Calls his aunt. I go in technically before they're open. She takes care of my tooth, because she had to otherwise had to push some patients around. And I was like, hey, is there anything I can do for you, man? This is like a huge help. You don't even know me. That was really cool of you. And he goes, yeah, well, honestly, I know that you're an entrepreneur and I want to be a graphic designer. Do you need a web designer? And I was like, actually, we do all of our stuff in-house, but I'll look out for you if I can. And of course, I immediately kind of forgot about it because I wasn't looking to build opportunities and network. I just was thankful I got my tooth fixed. But 4 days later, maybe not even, a friend of mine, female entrepreneur who comes up with a lot of web designs for clients, that's her whole thing. She said, hey, who does your website? Because I like it. And I keep getting these flaky designers who don't show up or don't finish the work. And I said, look, I do it all in-house. But I've got a portfolio from this guy. I've never worked with him, but what I will say is he's very, very nice. He helped me find a dentist when I needed one. He's very hungry. He works as a barista right now, and he could not more want to get away from this job and do graphic and web design. And she goes, all right, well, I'm in a tight spot. I'm going to try him out. Now he works full time, working with her, making six figures, doing websites and graphic design for all of her client sites and maintaining all of it and doing all the creative. And the reason he got that job was not because he put himself out there and networked really hard and got a job. No, he got there because he helped me, and he helped me without the expectation of getting anything in return. Because he didn't think, okay, if I help Jordan with his toothache, I'm going to get a job with him. He didn't know who I was, and I didn't know who he was. And so, of course, me sending in his portfolio to a friend of mine, that was me repaying the favor, but I never thought she would hire him full time. I mean, he was new. She was looking for somebody experienced that could start right away. He just happened to be a really hard worker and really hungry. He did the rest on his own. The truth is, if he somehow had a magical list of everybody that he'd ever met in his whole life from preschool on to current day, he never would have had her on that list, nor me, right? But since he helped me without even seeing an opportunity for himself, he got that opportunity. And so the rule here is a lot of times the opportunities that you can't see, the ones that are over the horizon, those are the best ones. You find them because you help someone find their way around, or you help someone get a web designer, or you help someone launch a podcast, or you take a phone call with somebody that's a friend of a friend of a friend because they want to do something and you just happen to be the right person to talk to. And this has happened to me a bunch. Like 3 years later, here's another example. I got a phone call from a friend of mine from law school, and he said, hey, my best friend from childhood is thinking about moving to LA. Could you talk to him on the phone? I know you're busy. And I was like, sure, why not? I talk to this guy on the phone. I tell him what neighborhoods are safe, where he can live, where he can find cheap rent, some good places to eat. Tell him to give me a call when he moves here. I don't hear anything for years. I completely forget about it. I walk in one day to a podcast network, and I go, oh, man, this is a tricky pitch, but I really need to use a studio, and I'm pitching this show, and, I want to make an appointment with somebody who is running this network. And the guy goes, sure, Jordan, I'll tell you what. I know that the boss, his name's Rodney, he doesn't really take pitches right now, but I'm going to throw in a good word for you, and I'm going to tell him you know what you're doing. And I was like, do I know you? And he goes, yeah, my name's Sean. I talked to you when I was about to move to LA. My friend who was your neighbor in law school told me to call you. And I was like, oh, you ended up moving to LA? And he's like, yeah, I got this job here, because I moved around here and I did all the things you told me to do, like networking and stuff. And here we are. And I was like, wow, I got you to LA, you got a job, and now you're in a position of power to help me. And I literally just walked in this building thinking I'm going to end up turning around and going home. And he ended up getting me a show on the network and helping me get a show on that network. And then later on, I actually got him a job at another network. So this type of thing pays off. I could have just said, no, I don't want to take a phone call with a random guy that I don't know. There would have been no real consequences to that ever.
Yeah.
My buddy from law school would have been like, oh, well, Jordan's busy. He wouldn't have been mad about it. Nothing would have happened. No negative consequence whatsoever. But I did it anyway, and I got a positive result. But you couldn't have predicted it. That's the key. A lot of people go, oh, yeah, help other people. You get stuff. They're a big deal. No, the idea is the opportunities are over the horizon. They're invisible. You can't see them. So you can't make the same calculation most people think that you can make. Most people think that you go, what do I want? Okay, I want more people to read my articles. Okay, so I get that by helping people who can then help me get people to read my articles. That is the wrong way to think about it. If you think about what's in it for you, you start optimizing for the relationships that you think are going to work for you. And that is so painstaking and tedious. Think about it like this. If you're looking for somebody who's a personal trainer who's going to give you nutrition advice, and you walk into a room of 100 random people and they're all at a networking mixer, you now have to walk around to all 100 people, give or take, and say, are you a personal trainer? Do you know anything about nutrition? Do you know anything about nutrition? And everybody you talk to, you go, hey, what are you doing here? As soon as you find out they can't help you, you lose interest, you get boring, you get bored, and then you make an excuse and you leave the conversation. If your goal is not to get what's in it for you right away, but you're pushing that off until later and you're working on figuring out how to help other people, now you go into a room of 100 people and there are 100 people who have a different skill set, most of whom are going to be helpful to somebody else that you already know. Now everyone is more interesting. Now every interaction you have makes a lot more sense, because if you're talking to a random motorcycle parts fabricator, you're not going, ugh, I'm never going to get more blog views from this guy. What you're thinking is, who do I know that loves motorcycles and might want some custom parts fabricated by somebody who really knows what they're doing? That's changing the mindset entirely. It changes the calculation, and it makes it so much easier to provide value to your network, because you're not thinking what plugs into my needs. You're thinking what plugs into the needs of every single person that I know. And that is a lot easier.
And you can't get that horizon benefit without getting a potential failure or pitch for something, right? So that filter, I mean, for me, it's easy to become cynical. People start approaching you for money for this or time for that, and it's really for them or for their organization. And many times it's a good thing to be a part of. Other times it's a huge waste of time. I'm not interested. However, I would still take a call. I would still personally do that stuff, because you have to risk that in order to see that potential horizon benefit.
Yeah. I mean, the idea here is and I know it sounds cliche, but I'm boiling it down from a boil down. You don't look at what's in it for you. You help other people without the expectation or attachment to getting anything in return. And you have another benefit here. Yeah. You have another benefit here because what happens is, let's say that I help you do something and I don't have the attachment to getting anything in return. If I never hear from you again, whatever. I mean, that doesn't really matter, right? I helped you with something. Like I'm going to forget about it in a week, in a day. If I help you and I have attachment to getting something in return and you're unable to help me, even if you really wanted to, I start to go, oh, well, this guy, he never did anything for me, so I don't want to help him again. And then you're wondering why I'm miffed at you next time I see you at whatever event we're at, right? And it's because you didn't read my mind and help me do something that you couldn't help me do.
I can't imagine the can of worms we'd open if I asked you about how you feel about how people are acting now. I mean, I'm not saying this from a self-righteous point of view, but the leveraging of this concept is got to drive you nuts.
Of what, the reciprocation type stuff where people
the covert contracts of hey, how can I add value to you? You're like, just stop.
The covert contract is a really good concept. In fact, that's something I talk about on my show before, and I assume maybe that's where you heard it initially or have heard it before. What it does is it poisons the well, right? So if you help me, or if I help you and I can't help you, and you can't help me back, one of those things, when somebody doesn't reciprocate. If there's a covert contract, meaning I expect quid pro quo and you can't provide, then I get miffed at you, right? And that poisons the well because you're not mad. You don't even know what's going on. I'm the one that gets mad. And not only am I mad at you, but let's say I help 20 people, 100 people, and I never get really that much reciprocated, or I don't get enough reciprocation. Then I'm not only mad at the people who didn't reciprocate for me, I don't want to help anybody because now I'm like, oh, whenever I help people, they just ignore me. I never get what I want. It's time for me to look out for number one. Well, how's that working out for you?
Yeah.
So you have all these people who won't do anything because they're like, well, how does this benefit me? I always get screwed over. Wham. And it's like, well, wait a minute. This contract exists in your head. This arrangement that you are owed something, that exists in your head, man.
Exactly.
So you end up being cranky, passive aggressive. Nobody else even understands why because they're not mad at you. They don't even understand why you could be mad. They're resentful. It's horrible, man. And it ruins all your relationships. So what you have to do is let it go and realize, look, if somebody doesn't help you back, it's not because they're bad or they don't value you, you're not valuable, or you're not good enough. It's because they can't or didn't even think about it. It has nothing to do with you. And if you internalize that and you still help other people without the attachment to getting anything in return, man, you bank so much social capital, you bank so much social currency. It's just absolutely crazy how much this then comes back to you. It just doesn't come back right away. Comes back to you because you start running into guys like Sean at the network where he got a job somehow because of me, and I didn't even think about it because you're playing it, you're rolling the dice, but you're playing with house money, right? You just keep playing that numbers game, and if you help 100 people a year or 1,000 people a year, and 1% of them help you back with something, it just looks like, man, people are really nice to me. I get all these amazing opportunities for absolutely no reason. People just email me with all this great stuff. But it's like, well, yeah, okay, if we trace this, what happened? Oh, well, yeah, I mean, a couple years ago, I helped him get a job, but I would have done that because he's a nice guy. Well, yeah, but you got him a job. You know how much that means to somebody, right? Or you introduced him to his wife. Yeah, but she was just a friend of mine from college. Yeah, but you introduced him to his wife. This guy has a special place for you in his heart unless you screw it up for the rest of his life. So that's the kind of thing that costs you very little on the front end. I mean, we're talking a lot of the time when I say help people, I mean, we're talking most of the time an email introduction. I'm not talking, I designed Kim's website for free and it only took me 16 hours. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about I introduced Kim to a graphic designer who she hired. Done. Took me 10 minutes. Yep. It's really scalable. It's very scalable.
Impactful from the Jordan Harbinger brand and you yourself. For real. This has been an awesome conversation. Jordan, can't thank you enough, of course, coming on the show with just having your son, you and your wife, Jen, there. You guys are absolute champions. But I want to acknowledge you. I can see in your work, dude, you really want to help. It's clear to me. You want to help people. Do you ever feel misunderstood or misconstrued?
Do I ever feel misconstrued? Not really. No. I mean, some people are like, oh, Jordan's really harsh and a little arrogant or brash, and I'm like, well, yeah, I'm brash. And also I'm not letting people like make mistakes on my time very often. I do sometimes because it's part of like being an educator, which I like to think that I am. But, like someone might go, oh, well, you didn't answer my email where I asked how I could have a job. And it's like, oh, I don't owe you that. And
yeah.
Like somebody, here's a real example. The other day, somebody sent me a LinkedIn message and went, I'd like to book myself as a guest on the Jordan Harbinger show.
Wow.
And I went,
so you booked them right away, right?
Yeah, right. And I was like, I wrote back, and what somebody would do is ignore this, right? Yeah. Somebody would ignore this, but I was like, I'm gonna turn this into a learning moment for this guy. And I said,
that how he actually said it?
Yeah. I'd like to book myself as a guest on your show. And then I was like, well, what would you like to teach the audience? Instead, I just ignored the fact that it was a completely inept pitch, right? But I already knew the answer is probably no, because people who know what they're doing don't approach like this. And then he sent me like 2 PDFs. He's like, read these. And I was like, I wrote back, I go, frankly, this is a terrible pitch. Why would I read these? Well, I have a lot to offer. And I go, tell me what it is. Don't make me do the work. You're pitching me. And then he was like, and he goes like, oh, I get it. You're really important. And he like went off on this ego thing. And I was like,
is that where your shower thought came from?
Probably.
Yeah, man. I could see it all now. I would have thought the same thing. So true.
It's probably what it was. And I wrote like, look, man, I'm just trying to show you that this is not the way you get on a show like this. You can't make the person who's the host of the show do the work. You're selling me. And he's like, I don't have to sell you. I run a major company. And I was like, look, candidly, you linked me to a Medium piece that you probably wrote yourself. There's nothing impressive about this. And you're telling me to go read it. And he's like, I didn't write it. Someone who works for the Medium magazine wrote it. And I was like, ooh, I hate to break it to you. It's a blogging platform. Like there's nothing special about this. And then I just was like, but I didn't say that. I just went, look, I think you should work on your pitch and you'll have better success. Best of luck.
See,
and
you really want to help. It's
yeah. Well, he got really pissed, and then I just blocked him because I was like, I'm not going to let you sit here while you cuss me out. I mean, you're a freaking moron if you think that you did everything right and I'm being a jerk. It's like, okay. Yeah. So and my wife goes, why don't you just ignore people like that? And I go, because one time 10 to 15 years ago, I was probably like that. I was probably that guy. And it would have been great if somebody said, hey, this is not how this is done. You should try another way. Here's a better way to do it. Now, his ego wasn't ready for that. So he's going to fail until he figures that out.
Yeah.
But hey, he'll hear again from somebody later down the line, maybe like somebody who he trusts, knows, likes, and trusts already. They'll tell him that. And then he'll go, shoot, that Jordan guy did say something like that too. And a couple of other people have heard that. And then who knows? I mean, there's a possibility, and I've had this happen too. Somebody comes back a year later and goes, dude, I was really out of line when I did that. I'm so sorry. And I go, hey, don't even sweat it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really cool, man.
Yeah. I do want to help because who wasn't a little at one point? The problem is this guy was like 35. This guy was 35. He was too old for that. But
he blew right past the development there.
Yeah. I was like, you're 10 years too late to be as entitled and passive aggressive as you're being if you want to get on a high performing media. Like it's just not going to work.
Jordan, I want to ask you in conclusion, this is very fitting. The park bench paradigm, if you could go back in time, sit down on a bench with the younger Jordan Harbinger right before you got into podcasting or in the stage where you're, let's say, a year into it, put your arm around your own shoulder using the pronoun you, what would you tell your younger self and why?
You're being way too hard on yourself. And the path to success is not necessarily going to college and grad school and getting more education and getting a corporate job. There's actually something else you can do other than be the types of jobs that you've seen your whole life. Because everybody grows up seeing firemen, police officers, teachers, and then whatever their parents do. And I was like, ooh, I don't want to do any of those things. And then someone's like, you should be a lawyer. Nobody thinks about all the other ways you can make a living out there. Nobody. And so I, for a decade and change, thought I'm just going to be miserable in some corporate job until I figure this out. Little did I know that I could carve my own path. I had no idea that was even possible.
How can we connect with you? Support the Jordan Harbinger Show on Spotify, any other platforms you're listening on. Go ahead and subscribe, listen to Jordan's show. How else? What's getting you out of bed in the morning right now, Jordan?
Yeah, people should check out the Jordan Harbinger show. I mean, that's where I interview amazing people. And frankly, the 6-minute networking course is where I teach the relationship development stuff. That's all free. And that's at jordanharbinger.com/course. And I'm at Jordan Harbinger on Instagram and Twitter.
Jordan, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time today.
You got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll cut it there. I want to ask you, I keep doing this where I run, especially with big name guests, where I'm running to the last minute because you have to go now. And I usually love to have like a 5-minute chat after the show. So do you recommend I just cut these to like 30 minutes?
Yeah, I would. I mean, a lot of people seriously, like they don't even, they like people love shorter shows. So if you can do a shorter show, that's great. You know, most people can't. I can't because I'm doing so much and trying to convey so much. But if you can, shorter is better. 30 minutes is really good. That's the average commute length. You know, that's a good length for a show.
Let me ask you this. Would you have done this if it was scheduled for like an hour though?
For an hour? No.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No.
Then you wouldn't, yeah. So that's my dilemma. So I'll have to think about that.
Yeah, because I won't do those because I've just found that like it depends on the show. Like when I did Impact Theory, I went to LA and hung out at Tom Bilyeu's house as a friend of mine. Like I know it's gonna like it's an hour long. That's what the show is. People go, I don't want to do the Jordan Harbinger show. It's 90 minutes, and I'm like, yeah, you do, because you're coming up after Howie Mandel and Chelsea Handler and Eric Schmidt from Google, and like it's worth your time. And then they're like, oh, yeah, good point. Okay, big audience, right? People don't go to Joe Rogan 3 hours. I'm not going to do that. I'll do an hour. Like they don't do that. It's Joe Rogan, right? So but like if you've got a beginning show, you've got to sort of earn the trust of the people and say like, look, here's why this takes an hour. And I tell them in my show pitch, I go, I don't say the reason it takes 90 minutes is this. I say I more or less do actually. I say the reason it takes a lot longer than their average media appearances. I spend between 10 and 20 hours preparing for the interview, including reading your entire book. And I want to make sure that the audience knows, likes, and trusts you by the time you're done appearing on the show. This is how you sell books, or this is how you move product. And people go, that makes sense, right? Because they're used to like a 5 to 7 minute NPR appearance or radio jaunt. Like they're not thinking like, they're like an hour. What am I going to talk about for an hour? Right. So that's why I would say start it. If you want to do the chat after, you got to cut the time down a little. Yeah.
That's hard because I'm trying to convey a lot more, but hey man, I look forward to meeting you in person someday, Jordan. And you know, I can't thank you enough sincerely from my heart. I have 3 little nieces, so get back to Jaden and also your wife, Jen, for facilitating all this.
Great. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And we'll talk soon. All right.
Congratulations on making it to the end of this episode. What about this episode stood out to you? Next, I need your help sharing this show. I want this podcast to impact and reach 6,000 people per episode by August 31st, 2019. And I want us to reach 15,000 people per month by March 29th, 2020. Have you been enjoying multiple episodes of The Heart Healthy Hustle? I'm thrilled to share with you an exclusive invitation to join our new Facebook community. To get to know other Heart Healthy Hustlers, simply go to thehearthealthyhustle.com/Facebook, where you can expect to see different members of our community being featured weekly in Facebook Live calls. I appreciate all of your love and support, and I will see you in the next episode. As always, be generous on every occasion. There is a story for you, and live wide open.